Hey folks, in this entry we'll be taking a look at Apex Cybernetics, the fictional villainous company from the film Godzilla vs. Kong. In a world where monsters of epic proportions roam freely, it's only a matter of time before the mega corporations of the world would get involved. Enter Apex Cybernetics, an industry leader in its field of emerging technology, especially in the area of artificial intelligence, as their name suggests. Led by its CEO, Walter Simmons, the company is entrenched in one seemingly well-intentioned goal: to restore humanity to its apex position in the natural order. But sometimes even the best of intentions can backfire in the most catastrophic of ways, although that's not to say their intentions were pure to begin with. As the film progresses, the revelation of the company's crimes become more apparent, ranging from the unwanted and downright creepy surveillance of their employees via organic trackers, all the way to the mass destruction of a populated city through their own mess-up. But before we delve more into their intentions and actions, let's first examine the state of the world they are in. Now, given that there are several iterations of the monsters over time in different forms of media, for the sake of this video, we'll stick to the one shown in this version of the Monsterverse. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to live in a world where gigantic monsters roam freely and skyscrapers could be falling like dominoes at any given moment. If it were up to most of us, it's a reasonable statement to conclude that we'd very much prefer if we humans were the ones in control of the planet instead of being subject to the unpredictable nature of wild behemoths. As of the events of King of the Monsters, there are 17 titans roaming free, and possibly more by the time of Godzilla vs. Kong. That's easily 2 or 3 titans per continent. We are definitely no longer in Kansas. Should they attack us, or even each other in a clash of the titans, the death toll could easily reach staggering numbers. But at the same time, if we're answering the question as to whether the titans and their actions are evil, the answer should be a no, or at least for the vast majority of them. They are simply following their primal instincts, and we cannot label them as evil any more than we would label a monkey or an elephant as wicked. However, there is one possible exception, though, namely the three-headed eastern dragon known as Ghidorah. This is the one monster that appears to have some actual level of malevolence, but then again, it's somewhat debatable. Apart from the obvious undertones of comparing it to the devil, and even if its secondary name is the devil with 3 heads, we also have what appears to be a smirk of enjoyment before it makes its kill. But then again, that could be just how it looks inherently. As with humans, some of us are just born with less friendly faces, but that doesn't necessarily mean we are hostile. Of course, if it truly does take sadistic pleasure in killing, then we can more readily conclude it as evil. At first glance, Ghidorah's actions appear to go beyond just meeting its basic survival needs. A carnivore will inevitably have to kill to sustain itself. But Ghidorah's actions seem to extend beyond that. It doesn't just kill to feed itself, but seems to be motivated by a desire to conquer the world. But what confounds the situation is that given its status as an alien, perhaps Ghidorah cannot help but alter the environment wherever it goes, which we see with the lightning storms that always accompany it. It could very well just be a part of its involuntary survival mechanism in making the Earth a suitable place for itself to inhabit, and perhaps for its future offspring. But whether Ghidorah and the Titans are evil or not, the fact we can all agree on is that they represent an Omega-level threat. In light of that, should the Titans be then eliminated as per what Apex Cybernetics proposes? Well, not quite. While I said earlier that I wouldn't want to live in a world where there are titans roaming around, in this universe there are some legitimate reasons for having them around. While the titans represent a huge casualty risk, at the same time and to the same extent, they are also carriers of life, helping to restore the ecosystem from the damage done to it by humanity. These include the regrowth of deforested areas, providing new substantial energy sources, and possibly solving world hunger with the resurfacing of ancient plants and fruits. But more importantly, killing the Titans is a short-term solution that leaves out the root cause. Perhaps, as the good doctor says, they are here because of us, because of humanity's destruction to the environment in the wake of activities such as atomic testing, strip mining, and seismic surveys. If the Titans are simply nature's way of rebalancing itself, then killing them would only result in them returning once more, and this time perhaps in even greater force. So like it or not, it seems the Titans are here to stay, and the only option is learning to coexist. Now obviously the notion of coexistence doesn't include Titans like Ghidorah. Given the fact that Ghidorah is not part of our Earth's ecosystem, there is no reason to have it around, and I'm sure most of you would agree. It's unfortunate, but our survival and Ghidorah's appear to be mutually exclusive, and whether it's evil or not, we'll just have to chalk it up to the incompatible circumstances of the situation. This approach could also apply to some of the other more destructive Titans as well, and this is where it becomes somewhat of a gray area. It seems that the general solution seems to be coexistence with the Titans, but on a case-by-case basis, taking into account each Titan's overall effect. Not to mention, there's also the added help from Godzilla to govern them as king and take care of any threats. But of course, trusting the fate of the world to a giant lizard would be a huge leap of faith for many, and therefore it's not morally wrong that Apex Cybernetics would construct Mecha-Godzilla. What if another creature like Ghidorah should descend onto Earth again? What if Godzilla fails to stop it? Or what if Godzilla itself turns against humanity? These are all scenarios that warrant serious consideration and would have devastating consequences should they come to pass. It's human nature to create contingencies as a backup, and we cannot fault Apex for building Mecha-Godzilla any more than we can fault the Navy for building their oxygen destroyer. So at this point, Apex Cybernetics is still in the morally neutral zone, and while we might not dispute of their construction of Mecha-Godzilla, the situation is again confounded with another caveat, the fact that it incurs the wrath of Godzilla out of the notion of replacing it as the apex predator. This fallout with Godzilla resulted in much collateral damage, which then raises the question if constructing Mecha-Godzilla was still worth it. In response, perhaps the answer is still a yes, but in a more remote and secluded location. Where the company falters is that they chose to resume their construction in a highly populated area, thus putting everyone at risk. The notion of plausible deniability doesn't apply here, as Walter does indicate that he is fully aware of the correlation between the construction of Mecha-Godzilla and Godzilla's wrath. Therefore, for him to continue building it in a major city is criminally irresponsible, to say the least. We don't know the exact reason why. Perhaps he was counting on Godzilla's non-aggressive nature, that the presence of a nearby settlement would deter Godzilla, or perhaps it just wasn't practical to not build it in a city, given how technological insensitive the endeavor is. But I reckon that given their vast resources, they could have found a way. And on top of Godzilla's wrath, there is also another element we need to consider, and that is the question of whether it's right for Apex Cybernetics to hold that much power over the world if they achieve their goal. Given Mecha-Godzilla's performance in the field of battle, being able to hold its own against both Godzilla and Kong, it's likely that Apex Cybernetics would have been able to eliminate all the Titans as well. Of course, both Godzilla and Kong were already exhausted from their prior fight, but even if they were fresh, it's reasonable to suggest that Mecha-Godzilla could have defeated them individually on a good day. Should that happen, Apex Cybernetics is poised to become the most powerful company in the world, and unrivaled in terms of sheer might. We cannot really fault them for this, for seeking to expand their scope of influence as any company would. It's just the way it is in the world of commerce in a capitalist economy. Rather, as with any tool, it's what one does with it that is the crux of the issue. While we may never get to see its full result, Walter Simmons does appear to be power-hungry and exhibits some level of deviousness, giving us reasonable doubt as to whether he can be a good steward of his level of influence. Given what we've seen of Apex Cybernetics, the fact that they unlawfully track their employees without their consent, it's very likely that if they gained even more power over the world, they would likely express that power in more nefarious terms. At least Godzilla is a neutral force that doesn't topple the balance of power in the world. So this further adds to the dilemma as to whether the Titans should be kept alive instead of killing them, and as to whether Mecha-Godzilla should still be constructed. Do we trust Godzilla to keep things in check, or do we take matters into our own hands and inadvertently create a bigger monster in the form of a mega-corporation instead? Personally, the ideal scenario would be coexistence with the Titans, with Mecha-Godzilla on the side as a backup. But then again, it's not exactly a feasible solution, as the moment you deploy Mecha-Godzilla in the field, Godzilla will come along to destroy it and we're back to square one. We'll never know, as thankfully the choice is made by itself, when Apex Cybernetics implodes from its own endeavor. At the end, their chief error lies in their own recklessness and negligence in choosing to deal with technology they didn't comprehend. Correspondingly, they inadvertently and indirectly resurrected Ghidorah, the one Titan that could be construed as evil, creating a nightmarish artificial intelligence that can only kill indiscriminately. Fortunately, their monstrous creation was stopped, but at a huge price in its destruction and collateral damage, and perhaps it's a testament to the fact that in this universe, humanity is just not meant to be at the apex. So what do you think of Apex Cybernetics, folks? And how would you deal with the Titan situation? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.